4. Okay, I'm hearing something in the background before I
Hey,
begin.
hey, you guys, can you excuse me? Can you speak a little
No,
softly on air with Zoom?
even we're on right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're up in 5. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. You know, we haven't heard a lot lately about these student demonstrators and protesters, but they have kept it up and they have been paying the price for it. As we saw at the end of last year, we saw at the University of Chicago and at other schools, many of these young people, 4 of them, in fact, at the University of Chicago, my father's alma mater, and it seems like every Jackson has done a tour of duty at the U of C. It was so appalling to see that 4 students initially were not going to be the recipients of their degrees, Attorney Sergienko, because of their participation in these demonstrations. These demonstrations, I think we should emphasize, have been multiracial. They've, in large part, been led by a lot of young Jewish activists. And it's important for us to understand that they have been peaceful and they have been broken up by saboteurs. We need to look at that as we're going to get into that. And as we do, I want you to please meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. And I am still on X. That's right. That's Santita J. That's Santita J. And please go to this page on Facebook, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Not the Santita Jackson page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I think I have big hair on that one. I'm not sure if you, depending upon where you find me in my life, I look different all the time. And then, of course, I am over here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And, Bernadette, Robert got over here before you did today. Girl, there you go, Robert. Shalom to you, Robert. And Bernadette is telling you to like and share. Everybody like and share. Please, please like and share. And when you're on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. And I need you to put those thumbs up, everybody. Like and share the show. We're finding that as the show travels, Attorney Darrell Jones and Attorney Linda Bernard, as the show travels, many of the shows have 1.5 to 2 million to 3 million people who watch it because the show continues to get passed along, and we're really grateful for that. But what we need you to do is like and share in real time. My algorithm has been, I think you can appreciate this, Attorney Ricci Sergienko, a hellraiser. That's what you are. Um, I think when they found out that I had progressive politics, my algorithm got turned around. But that's okay. We keep on pushing on, right? And that's okay. So, everybody, let's get this going. I was struck by this headline. And so, when I reached out to you about something else, Attorney Sergienko, I was like, wait a minute, I just read this story. I just read this story because I've been following UCLA. I have a niece who went to USC. And I've always been looking at what's going on in Los Angeles, and I was fascinated by how the protests were handled at UCLA, because UCLA protests were peaceful, they were wonderful until they were not, and they were violently interrupted. And what was so unsettling was that you saw the collusion of these paid protesters, sponsored protesters, Bill Ackman, Jerry Seinfeld's wife,
Mhm.
all of that, right? And the LAPD. LAPD is always in the middle of a lot. And I'm talking to someone who is beloved by the LAPD, Attorney Ricci
That's
Sergienko.
one word
Oh,
for it.
oh my gosh, but you know what? I know you'll probably want him on your radio show, Attorney Darrell Jones. He's on WOL in Washington, D.C. Of course, you can listen to it everywhere, everybody, every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And I've got us a cop here. Brilliant lawyer. He's a brilliant lawyer. He's the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. But she is one of the police commissioners in Detroit. And she is the first African American to get a master's in law from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. and she's been on the board of trustees at law schools and all of that. Won cases before the state Supreme Court. Brilliant lawyer. And I said, think they can bring something to this show. But we want to hear from you first because in The Intercept, one of my favorite outlets, the headline is this: police shot them in the head with rubber bullets. Okay, that's right, in the head, Attorney Bernard. She said, wait a minute, rubber bullet? She hadn't heard about this. And now UCLA Gaza protesters are suing, and they should. Police conspired, the story starts, to violently attack anti-genocide protesters at the University of California at LA last year, according to a suit filed in Superior Court. And one of those persons who helped to file that suit is with us today. So help me to understand what you are doing, one of my favorite troublemakers, Attorney Richie Serchenko. Well, no, but I appreciate your fight. I do, because they need all of the support that they can get. Because I think when you look at, that's why I mentioned Jerry Seinfeld's wife and Bill Ackman, who top hedge fund manager, billionaire, who's someone who's pushed against affirmative action, who's pushed against a DEI. He was instrumental in getting Claudine Gay removed as the first Black president of Harvard Law School, based upon really the Palestinian issue, but he called her a plagiarist while his wife was a plagiarist in her PhD studies and her dissertation at MIT, but no one really wants to talk about that anymore, do we? She just issued an apology, and that was the end of that, yes? I think, do I have it right? If I have it wrong, correct me. Okay, so UCLA, rubber bullets. I have to say, when I shared this story with Commissioner Linda Bernard, Police Commissioner Linda Bernard, she said, rubber bullets? Wait a minute, they can be lethal. Talk to us, Richie. What happened?
Well, you already said that they shot a person in the head. They could have put out their eye. And they obviously, depending on, but all the lawyers on this call know is what the eggshell skull theory. If I have a very thin skull, the rubber bullet could penetrate the skull as well. People have different, thickness in terms of their skull and so forth, but it's outrageous. It's an outrageous thing to do. It's unfathomable. I think in Michigan, I don't know about your cities, gentlemen. Rubber bullets cause bruises, contusions. They can even, depending on if you're an older person and you have thin skin, it can pierce the skin. It makes no sense whatsoever to use that level of force against people when you don't have to. I mean, you can back people up just by being in a phalanx with your shields, just taking one step at a time. Slowly you can move people without ever using a weapon against them. And I am shocked. I can't even believe it happened in California. Now I can believe it happened someplace else, like Mississippi or someplace like that. But California, for
California
them,
gave us
the most
Reagan.
liberal state in the union.
No. They have Orange County too. So, Richie, what happened? What?
Yeah. So, there are examples of these quote unquote less lethals. I don't, that's how they're colloquially referred to as, but, we call them, kinetic impact missiles or rubber bullets, and they have killed people before. LAPD has killed someone 2 years ago, Jason McConney. And then there was another example of Fullerton police 2 years ago as well, killing someone with these rubber bullets. And so they can lethally, be lethal. And especially, this is like definitely a conversation about police reform as well, because these less lethals were given to the police with the policy behind them that they would fire them, below the waist or at the ground, and some that they're meant to skip and hit people. And because they call them less lethals, they are, deemed appropriate for police to use at protests. But we're trying to say no, that they should not be used at protests, and they don't follow the policy to fire them at the ground. If you remember seeing last year, California Highway Patrol and LAPD used these kinetic impact missiles against students at the UCLA encampment. And they were firing at people's heads above the waist. And our clients were hit in the head. One of our clients was hit in the head. Another was hit in the back, in the side. Another was hit in the hand and had her hand broken. And so these are serious injuries that have lasting impacts. And yeah, and I thought it was funny that, the discussion about it happening in California and in Los Angeles and not expecting it to happen in this liberal paradise. But if you Santita, you read the Intercept article. I tried to highlight that this happened under Karen Bass. This happened under Gavin Newsom last year under Biden, not under Trump. And so I think there needs to be like a wider understanding also that the Democratic establishment made an enemy out of these young people, and they sent the police in to seriously harm them and also, arrest them, which thus international students, if they were arrested last year at any campus protest, their name is now in a registry for Trump to pick them out and target them and possibly leave them up for deportation. So that's kind of a long-winded response about the article and the situation, but it's so dangerous, and we should be reminded of like how and why this happened.
We're talking with Richie Sergienko, Esquire, attorney Sergienko, who's part of the legal team for these injured persons. And I need to know, though. I mean, I think we cannot emphasize enough that this is a bipartisan betrayal. When you look at, this is the establishment. Before I go to you, Attorney Jones, this is these young people. What did you say, Attorney Sergienko? You said, hey, they have made. Now the Democrats are their enemies too, not just Trump.
Yeah.
See, so when you look at
the Biden admin made enemies out of the young people, actively targeted them, thus paving the path for the Trump administration to do the same.
Well, how did talk to me? What kind of give me the backdrop? What happened? Why was this kind of force used in the first place? What happened?
The reason why is much simpler, but the what happened will be a little bit more complex. The reason why is because the school, UCLA, the state of California, the city of Los Angeles wanted to shut the encampment down, primarily related to the subject of the students' speech, which is pro-Palestine. And also, our tax dollars are connected to, funding this genocide. But also, I don't know if people, realize and understand that universities are also complicit, in either their investments into, weapons manufacturers or companies that are supporting the Israeli state, or with research labs and actually doing research for the Department of Defense. That kind of stuff is happening at UCLA and campuses all around the country. And so the encampment, obviously, people familiar last year with the quote unquote student intifada that sprung up across the country. And UCLA was one of the main highlights of last spring. And the camp lasted for about a week. And, each night of the encampment, these Zionists would show up and try to infiltrate and break down barricades and make their way into the encampment, which led to on April 30th, the night before the police raid, where there was at least a 4-hour long Zionist mob attack on the encampment and the students and community members at the encampment. And the students being attacked themselves, and because of the BS rhetoric calling them anti-Semitic for simply being against genocide, that was used as the reason for police involvement and police raid of the camp. And so, yeah, it was, and what the city and the UCLA did, for people that may see encampments or protests in other places, they let the Zionists basically attack for 4 hours with no stopping it. They sat back and watched. But what they were doing was allowing, the Zionists to soften up the camp and attack students and break them down, which would make it easier for them to attack and assault, for the police to attack and assault them the next night. And so,
hold on, I need you to, because this sounds like a siege.
I need to slow. Yeah.
So they were in these encampments, and I've seen the encampments, and they have been like, with tents, and they are having interreligious services, and they're having read-ins. They're also studying because they're going to class.
Yeah.
They are making food as people come by. If they're curious, they talk with them. It really was something quite wonderful. And so I'm trying to, I need you to make it even more clear to the audience what a 4-hour attack. I mean, Daryl, I read about it, but it just didn't quite land. They attacked them for 4 hours. What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm happy to open it up to the other esteemed guests on here, but there were a group of Zionists that had gathered at the encampment every night, but presumably, many of them were connected to the people that you had mentioned previously, like Bill Ackman and Jerry Seinfeld, who had funded that GoFundMe, which was used for unclear what it was used for, but it was clearly for some sort of congregation of Zionist Israel supporters, and it was a siege on the encampment. They were lighting off fireworks. They were breaking down the walls and trying to grab people. They were hitting people over the head with metal poles and wooden pallets, and throwing or spraying like just spraying people with like tear gas, not tear gas, but pepper spray.
Mace. Uh-huh.
Yeah, mace. And funny enough, the one person that has been charged, the pro-Israel person has been charged, is in the IDF currently. He is in Israel. The charges came down a few weeks ago. His name's Eden On. And I can put this in the replies online, but yeah, one of them is actually currently an IDF member. So just funny how that all works out.
I mean, wow. Because he's not the only one. Because these encounters have become quite violent. I've seen Black people call the N-word. People have spat in their faces. It's really ugly. And that side, but that side has not been shown. No one talks about that part. I mean, it's just the burden has been put on the students. They're the ones who are, who are painted as the provocateurs. No one talks about the fact that many of these attackers have been paid to do this. But, before I bring in Attorney Jones and before I bring you back in, Attorney Bernard, because I need you to paint the picture for us, Richie, because we need to know what happened. Because, I mean, Daryl, they didn't really tell this part. Mm-hmm. You had to read a lot of articles and engage in a lot of conjecture so that you could say, oh, this sounds horrible. And what you're doing is filling in the blanks for us.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of blanks to be filled, because there's a lot of the story that hasn't been told. And a few days prior to the Zionist mob attack, there was this rally on a counter rally put on by pro-Israel people, and the ADL was there. Jonathan Greenblatt from the ADL spoke at the rally, and that was a few days before. And it's really tough to get all the way into the weeds to this, but the person on the name of that GoFundMe that Seinfeld's wife and Bill Ackman had donated to, the person whose name was on the GoFundMe was there helping set up the stage for that Zionist rally. It was a Sunday, and then on the Wednesday night mob attack, that person whose name was on the GoFundMe was also there at UCLA at the time of the attack. And so when Santita, when you're bringing up paid protesters, and that's legitimate, what you're saying, you're not exaggerating the truth or stretching the truth. Legitimately, there's a web of all of these things being connected, and it truly was never really dove into. I don't know if you know about the Dr. Phil part of it either. I'll put that in the replies on Twitter, because it's just it was a whole thing. It was a whole operation.
I remember when he was riding around with a camera team, and he was going to, I guess, expose what was happening there. What happened with Dr. Phil?
Dr. Phil worked with a former Israeli intelligence officer who, quote unquote, did a quiet infiltration of the camp. But simultaneously, Dr. Phil, the Israeli military, were also working in collaboration with the LA Sheriff's Department. And it's unclear of other than the relationship simply existing, what they were really doing. But there is, Dr. Phil made a whole show about it, about how he worked with Israeli military operations and the police, and he made an hour-long special about taking down the encampment at UCLA.
But may I just point out, every university has its own police department. They have their own sworn officers, and they can always call in sheriffs or any other group, state police, if they need them. So these officers that were doing this that you're talking about were probably the officers who there's a chief of police on every campus. So it's probably their officers that were doing this. I don't think it would be LAPD.
Right. Do we know if did the campus police call in for backup or anything?
They can, but they have large forces themselves. Yeah. They have their own pension plan, their own everything. These are sworn officers who meet all state certifications to be certified as officers. Right. So it should have been the campus police that were doing this.
But well,
and they're not friendly. I'm not saying they're good guys.
Look, at Wayne State, I think their police force, what is it, bigger or as large as that of the Detroit police?
Well, no, Holt is the head of Wayne State's police department. Yeah, he knows your father.
Yeah, I know him. It's a big police. But my point is this. I just think there's a thin line, because I've been out to UCLA a lot, and it's it's a city within the city, and the line is blurred, quite frankly.
Well, the Detroit police have an obligation to keep the peace in the city, but the campus is really a separate, has its own separate police department, and they can call on them whenever they want to. That's true.
Well, I'm just saying, when you get to UCLA and USC, these are, even though it's a state school, it's a wealthy school. USC is a private school, wealthy school, and these kids are very protected. and so what say you, Richie? Because and Daryl, feel free to jump in, because you all lawyers. I am just trying to figure it out. How did have the LAPD been implicated in this, Richie?
Well, yeah, the lawsuit is against LAPD and California Highway Patrol, because the command team was headed by Karen Bass, mayor of LA, UCLA administration, and state officials, likely running point for Gavin Newsom. And so, because CHP is a state organization, the claim is against the state of California. And the city of Los Angeles, who is representative of the LAPD. So it's against those two. UCPD was there that night. However, they didn't. There were over 1,000. Excuse me, I don't want to say over. There were nearly 1,000 officers from different departments on UCLA encampment, on UCLA campus for the police raid.
How many students were actually part of the encampment, Richie?
But
Well,
Daryl, just quickly, as you know, the police are going to say that they have governmental immunity. That's what all police departments do throughout the country.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But how many students were actually part of the encampment?
There were probably over 300 people in the encampment, and that last night, probably a couple thousand people on the outside of the encampment throughout the night. But there were a lot of officers, in riot gear with the less lethals out. It was like felt like a war zone that night, I would say.
Yeah. And a lot of times, Santita, and there's so much I want to say regarding this, and I believe both Linda and Richie probably will back this up. A lot of time when the officers show up with the riot gear and they're very aggressive, right, going toward the folks, they're looking to start something. They're looking to spark something out of the group so they can go ahead and put their pain tolerance and go at them to try to dismantle the camp. And part of what it sounds like is laid out here is that's precisely what was going on. I think Linda's 150% correct that the campus police could have handled this. There was nothing that was being said that's been presented that in any way had those students that were in encampment doing anything that was endangering anyone. That wasn't there. There are no reports of them throwing cans at them, throwing rocks at them, doing anything against those police officers other than handing out information and having conversation. And to have rubber bullets as a response to that, it's over the top. So, certainly kudos to Richard for bringing the suit. But the other piece that we've got to look at, I think, is this. It's not just this one incident that we need to do this. We don't need to look at this in isolation. What this is indicative of, it's a pattern and practice of chilling the effect of people to use their First Amendment right to speech, because that's what this is about. They were using and exercising their First Amendment right. If this university, who is supposed to be in a position to protect its students, is calling in police to rip down the camps and to beat them and all this other stuff and to arrest them and to really put them in position, if they're international students, to be deported. And by the time all this is over, if you're a U.S. citizen, you may be deported to El Salvador. But
Rwanda.
Or Rwanda. Take your choice. How far away they want to send you. But it all becomes a thing right now for these students that it's going to have a chilling effect. It's going to have the impact on these students of saying, perhaps I shouldn't protest. Mm-hmm. Perhaps I shouldn't stand up for what I believe because I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to not be a lawyer because I now have this on my record and I've got to explain how I got this on my record before this ethics board. Those are the steps of what's happening now, and it's a fear that shouldn't be there. It just shouldn't be there. As the actions of the university, I think, are despicable. I think that if Mayor Bass was involved with it, all of that, it's all despicable what they've done to these students. And the big thing is, and then I'll be quiet on this point. The one thing I learned, and I went to one of those little poor University of Maryland College Park students, right? I,
The
where you know
the
we
main
would.
the main
We're,
the main college, the main campus. But
right,
okay.
where we were taught to challenge our thoughts, to challenge the things that are there, to push back against the traditional norms, ask why isn't it? So why should the students not have the opportunity to ask the question why this is not genocide, why they can't push on their rights, why they can't make those demands? That's what these students were doing. And I think that rather than meeting them with brutal force, they needed to meet them with some intellect to try to explain it to them, if in fact that's what their position was. So those are all the things that bother me about all of this that's going on, Santita.
But I have to add this because Rita, you brought this into the conversation, the political moment. This was a year ago. This was leading into the Republican and Democratic nomination and November. And you had people who were engaging in one-upsmanship, who was going to protect which community more. And these students were paying a huge price, Ricci, because they were the ones because you saw the raid at Columbia University. What they didn't show you was how horrible. All they did was go straight up Broadway. I've lived in New York for years. They went straight up Broadway, about 30 blocks or so, and they took out those student protesters at CUNY, the City University of New York, in a violent fashion.
Right.
And you never saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were violently attacked by the police. What we saw at Columbia was child's play compared to what they did to these poor students who are at CUNY. So, I mean, I think that's why when you say, wait a minute, they're looking at the Democrats, they're looking at the Republicans, and they're like, please. I mean, and you and I have talked about this, Daryl, and we talked about this, Attorney Bernard, and Attorney Jones, Attorney Sergienko. And see, you're younger than I am. I mean, and I say that, look, I am glad to be an elder. I don't, I'm not that woman. I'm very happy to be grown. Really. I love it. And I'd like to bring to you my own experiences because I've seen this before. I've seen the people who've paid the price for just standing up for the Palestinians. I saw that with my father, and then I saw it happen to me, and I saw it happen to different people in my family. I was told in my Harvard interview, if you would, after these people called me, I'm a merit scholar, okay? We want to know, will you, in the nice interview, because I had to be re-interviewed, the first one was so ugly. Will you be independent of your father and his politics? In other words, will you throw your father over into the sea? Of course not. I said, now, Caroline Kennedy went to Radcliffe just a few years ago. Was she asked this line of questioning? Because that's all I could do, because I could, even though I was being treated unfairly, I could not go to my parents and say that I had disrespected an adult. You don't do that. And my parents would have penalized me for that. That was the best I could do. And they said, well, your father's no president. I said, my father's a freedom fighter. My father doesn't kill people. That's what presidents do. Did this happen? That's the best I could give them. So this is not new. No, but this is not new. But what is happening now is there is a willingness to push back. Mm-hmm. We're not alone like we were. I mean, and my parents didn't go in aggressively going after, trying to hurt Israel. It's just that when you get over there, you see that the story that you've been given is wrong. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait. My mother was the person who challenged Andrew Young to go to at least have a back channel meeting with the PLO. That's what got him fired. And he will tell you, right, Jackie, you got me fired because she challenged him. He said, Jackie, you don't understand. This is the third rail of American politics. I will lose my job. She said, what would Martin do, Andy? This job is not that important. And my mother's coming back from Lebanon shell-shocked. You leave your hotel and you come back and half your hotel's been blown away. Mm-hmm. The driver who drove you to the venue, you got another driver. You're like, well, where's Abdul? They're like, well, no, he was killed driving. Or the car blew up. That was her trip. First trip she had over there. It's horrible. Now that was 45, 46 years ago. And this has gone unchecked. And now what we're seeing this happen on our shores with our children. See, when a child comes to the United States, Richie, they're my child. It's like if I let a child stay with me, I have said to their parents, I will protect them until I get them back to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what America has said to these children. I don't care, a 25-year-old, you're a kid. A 30-year-old, you're a kid. You're a child. You're in school. You can't make any money. You really can't. You need backup. And so I think it's important. That's why I want you to fill in the blanks, Richie, because people need to know how violently these encampments have been broken up, because that story has not been told. Somebody could have been killed by these rubber bullets. Somebody was killed on Mr. Baldwin's movie set.
Mhm.
What happened? We don't know. Were they all rubber bullets? See, we don't know. We don't know what. If you're going to shoot a gun, you're shooting a gun. It's a projectile, rubber or not. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody could have said, "Oops." Isn't that what happened to the boy up in Minnesota, just outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul? I didn't know my gun was loaded. Remember that? Oh, okay. So Daryl, when you start shooting, we don't know what's loaded in the gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, Richie, it's important to tell all of that. Because we got some snapshots, Linda, but we didn't see. But I mean, and when you saw the violence, you assumed that these students had gone crazy. And that's not what happened, Richie, is it?
No, of course not. And, obviously, Santita, through your experience and just witnessing all types of civil rights movements throughout recent history and in the past, the police are the ones that are sent after young people, right? Young
Yeah.
people that are willing. And it's always funny, we look back and say, the young people were right at this time, and the young people were attacked, and so we're seeing that same thing happen now. And so that's why I think it's important, and it's great to have other lawyers on this call, and people like yourself, Santita, to be looking out for these young people, and it is important to let them know that we're in this together, and we're not just going to let them be attacked by the state like that.
Well, I'm looking out for you too, because you are standing in the gap for them. The
Mm-hmm.
state will come after you. See, if you're holding on to your license, you're doing something wrong. Samora Michelle, who was killed right here, but less than about a month after we met him, bless his heart. He said, to paraphrase him, he told his people, if the Western world, if whites speak well of me, then I have already betrayed you. He said, so leave me alone when that happens. And so we're trying to stand in the gap for you too, Richie, Sergi, and Co., because you're going to need that. Because those same forces who paid the people to break up the encampments are looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Of
So
course.
That's why in every opportunity.
I'm looking at them.
Yeah, I know you are, and they know that. They write about you. They call him hostile, Daryl and Linda.
But the interesting thing would be if, in fact, these actions were raised with the World Court.
Mm.
And you had an American university that was found to have discriminated against and violated, if you will, the human rights of students. That would escalate it to a much higher level. Just like Netanyahu is an international criminal. I understand his wife can't go to countries, his family, has to be protected all the time because they have indicted him for war crimes. And these institutions that are doing what you said I did not know there were 1,000 people, or all of you said California State Police, Los Angeles Police Departments, and that there was this, like they're going to bum rush the students, peaceful protesters with no weapons. They're not doing anything to them. They're not even throwing rocks at them. I mean, nothing. To do this is a human rights violation. And as you and I both know, I support that organization of human rights. They go all over the world and certify actions that have been taken against people, that violate human rights, the canons and code out of Geneva and so forth regarding human rights violations. That would be what would be a gut blow to UCLA. I mean, oh wow! I mean, they could take this far beyond California. You can also raise a complaint, obviously, with the United Nations. You could put them on Front Street. We can't hurt them financially. They're billions and billions of dollars, but guess what? You can hurt their reputation. Everybody can be hurt, and that would be horrific for any university. Right. To be caught up, for there to be protests filed. I don't know how you do it, but you do it with the United Nations and you do it with the World Court.
Right. And the other part that goes along with that, Linda, is that once that is filed and the university gains that reputation for not being open like that, you're not going to see students wanting to go there. You're not going to have your best minds going there. They're going to be choosing to go to some place where they can be challenged and be free to talk and explore their ideas. What UCLA is demonstrating here is that you're not going to be, you're not going to be free to discuss your idea. Keep it to yourself. If it's not what our university wants to have heard, you're going to have to keep that to yourself. And that's not what the university experience is intended to be. So I think that if they do the World Court or the UN or to bring some type of action against them, that certainly would be an incredible blow to the UCLA's reputation.
Well,
and also, I don't know if you all saw it last week. At UCLA, some students attempted to organize a documentary screening of the encampments. The encampments documentary put out by Watermelon Pictures, which is about the Columbia encampments and some UCLA stuff. But the students tried to organize a screening, and UCPD bum rushed their screening and arrested 4 people and confiscated the projector. And so nearly 1 year to the date of the police raid, and the students showing a documentary about, the violence that they were exposed to, UCLA sent in the police to break up a screening. And they're creating a generation of people that are being harmed by these institutions. And so I would say, they're prepping for what's to come, whatever developments are to come. The schools, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, they are all facilitating a generation of people who are simply fed up.
Well, something like that happened at the University of Michigan, Santita. The guy that is now in California, the coach for Harborough, for your Chargers, for the San Diego Chargers, our athletic department at the University of Michigan has like 2,500 employees in it. And he decided when the movie came out, the sniper that glorified the guy from America that killed, I guess, almost 1,000 people as a sniper. And then, as you know, he subsequently committed suicide himself. But anyway, and after he came back to the United States, but Harborough viewed him as a, quote, great American hero. And he insisted on the entire athletic department, 2,000 employees going to see the movie. So the Arab Student Association, Black Student Association, all the minority student associations said, well, we don't have a problem with you taking all 2,000 people to see the movie. And it's your opinion that he's a great American hero. But in our opinion, he is not. He is a murderer of people who were not his enemy. There was no declared war against these people, and he just killed them. So he told them, So he refused to allow the debate and the colloquy between student bodies and the university about it. This is a university. It's supposed to be free speech. You get a chance to put forth your views. He took all 2,000 of them anyway. He said, I don't have to have a discussion about this. We're not having a discussion at the University of Michigan. Athletic individuals who work there. We're not having this discussion. I'm taking everybody, the teams too, while we're on the subject. I mean, the teams, everybody had to go see the sniper. And so it created a big brouhaha because of what he did. But now he's in California. So what can I tell you? And we're
you got it.
Violations of the NCAA rules right now for the next 2 years, it looks like.
But you know what? I think Daryl, you bring up a point. Ricci, you have to. I think everyone has brought up a point. The profound damage that our universities in the United States are taking, because you have people who are now saying, Harvard, you can keep it. Harvard better fight, because there's more than one Harvard in this world. You've got some great universities. While we've been building bombs, other people have been baking bread.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you can eat, things that you can use. Other people have been building hospitals, research centers, major universities. They've been pouring their resources into that. While Newark can't get, they have 9 days of delays. People are stuck at Newark's airport. Sorry, Newark. It's a horrible airport. Yeah, I said it. Sue me. Everybody knows it. Nobody wants to go in there. No one wants to be stuck in any airport or around an airport for 9 days. People don't have that kind of money. People are living on the margins. So, I mean, this is so damaging. You don't send your child to, you expect young people to get an awareness of the world and to engage in protest and to come home from college not eating meat, not eating the pig. I mean, you come home with all kinds of ideas by November or December, and your parents roll their eyes and say, okay, here we go. To me, all of this is part of your college experience. It's part of it. Right. And these young people are saying, I don't need this. And I don't like what's happening in America right now.
Right.
And, and that's, that to me is what's very dangerous. And when they see Kent State Part 2, Jackson State Part 2, which is what this is, that's why you were like, oh, there's a lot that people don't know. That's why I wanted you to be here and tell it. Because people need to know just how violently these encampments were interrupted. And somebody could have been killed. If someone had not had some movement discipline, some of those kids could have been killed.
And many of those, and I apologize, Ricky, for jumping in there. Mm-hmm. And many of the students, particularly ones that were shot in the head with those rubber bullets, you can rest assured that they have been permanently damaged psychologically with regards to what has happened to them. Not only the ones that were shot, but the ones that witnessed them getting shot. Mm-hmm. All of that, it has a permanent psychological scarring effect on those students. And I tell you, you say what you want to say, but I tell you, when you start asking college students to vote and all this other stuff, they're looking at, well, wait a minute. They were raising their political voice and they got shot at. Why should I be part of this process? It's not just Gen Z that's watching this. This is Gen Alpha that's also watching this. So, these are long-term consequences that are occurring from what's happening at these universities. And so that's why I think it's so incredibly important that Ricky and others bring those type of lawsuits to support these students, because I can almost guarantee you that the university has done nothing to provide any type of support services to the victims of the violence from the police attacks on these camps.
Well, and let me tell you, and you want to know why November happened?
Yep.
Ricci?
100%.
I mean, what kind of feedback are you getting from these young people? What are you getting?
Well, as I discussed at the beginning of the show, this happened in a Democratic city in blue California under a Biden presidency. And so these students, these young people are literally being attacked for their political views. And then uh, Kamala Harris says, I'm not going to do anything different than Joe Biden and Joe Biden's policy on Palestine. And also Biden and Harris like called students anti-Semitic or terrorists. Why would they vote for that? That it's just like very, and it's like, oh, young people they're not strategic and they haven't been around long enough, and this is how you're supposed to play the game. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's but like they're still being attacked in the midst of being called terrorists and having cops shoot rubber bullets at their head. And that's another thing. Like, how are these students? Daryl, brought this up. Like, how are these students supposed to feel safe on campus after experiencing that? Like, how are they supposed to go to campus, especially after being bum rushed again a year later while watching a documentary? Like, how do you think those students feel about the administration and the police doing that to them?
They can't see any difference. They're being treated the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And so when I talk about this, and some people attack me, I hear them, and I can handle it. Santita, you're not pulling for the Democrats. No, I pull for democracy. I'm standing for the Republic. Okay. I've always been honest with you about being a political independent. I'm a registered Democrat because I have brothers in Congress and I voted for them. That's it. My father did not run for president to save the Democratic Party. He was striking a blow to help save democracy, to make this republic more democratic. That's what that was about. Reagan owned the Republican Party 40 plus years ago. What else was he going to do? Run against Reagan? No. And then you had the Democratic presumptive nominees who came in while we were running Harold Washington for mayor, while we were about to get the first Black mayor in Chicago, with Chicago's racist history, run by the Democratic Party, by the way. Mm-hmm. And the chief liberals in the party, Ted Kennedy and Vice President Mondale, the presumptive nominee, they disrespected us and came into Chicago anyway. We said, wait a minute, and we're supposed to vote for you anyhow? Reverend says something, that math ain't mathin'. So he went to Maynard Jackson and Andrew Young. He said, you all are mainstream. You know what? Somebody needs to run for president because, I know how to do it. I'm an organizer and I'll support you. I'll be as close to you as you need me to be. I'll be as far away, but I'll show you we can do this. Maynard Jackson had just gotten remarried, had another child, but he thought it was a great idea. Uncle Andy said, Jesse, here you go again. I don't think so. And I'm not mad at him. That having been said, that's how that happened. This was never about a party. This was about the people. Mm-hmm. That's why you had some Black Republicans for Jesse Jackson. You had some white ones too. So at some point, look, when are we going to get this right, Daryl? I mean, be a Democrat, do whatever you want to do. But do not tell these children, don't tell these young people, don't tell people. There were 900,000 people who did not vote in New York State. Don't disrespect them and say, oh, you weren't being strategic, like you just said, Richie. Oh, you really don't understand this. No. They're saying you don't understand this. Jonah Karsh from If Not Now was on my show about a year ago. He said, you don't understand. Jonah's not even 25. He said, I don't want the world you live in. I don't want it. And I'm not going to have it. Our parents said that to their parents. We said that to ours. We didn't quite get it right, but these kids will.
Let us hope and pray.
Well, you know what? I want them to know that they have some supporters. And You had a disparate group here today. You had a police commissioner and a lawyer, someone who is conservative in many ways, but someone who's 10 toes down, a civil rights activist. Absolutely. You've got one of the chief proponents for the vote in the country today with you, a former prosecutor. He heard you. I've heard you, and the audience have heard you too. And they needed to hear you. They needed to hear what happened in those encampments. We needed to hear all of the money that went into people who were funding the people. These people were paid to attack them, and they have been attacked every time there's a gathering. I see them being attacked. I see them being spat upon, being called racial epithets. It is a horror. And yeah, it's happening in California. California gave us Reagan too, y'all. Okay?
Right.
Oh, a right winger with a lovely bow all around him. So, is there anything you'd like to say, Richie Sergienko? And I want you to come back to the show. And I certainly am good. If you don't mind, I want to connect you to Daryl Jones, because you should be on his show. Because I want you to talk to as many people as you can so that they can hear your story and hear these stories. Because if this stays in the dark, nothing's going to change. People need to know what happened to these young people. They need to know that they were shot in the head. And all it took was somebody who decided to behave in a nefarious way and put real bullets in that gun. And they could have said, oops, I really thought that's the way that happens. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, we could have seen, a student or community member lose their life, last year at UCLA and other encampments with this. Politicians should know, they do know what kind of violence they bring when they call the police in to break up protests. And so those are decisions that they are making. And they should be held to account. And there are many different ways to do so. And this lawsuit is just one part of it. And Santita, I appreciate you having me on and helping us share this story. But also, I think it was really important that you were saying, you want people to know and the students to know that there are people listening, the story's getting out there, and you're in solidarity with them, and that's what we're trying to build overall here. A lawsuit, a protest, a campaign, whatever it is, we are building this movement, and it is how the establishment wants to react. That's how they'll react, but the organizing on our side remains the same. And I appreciate Linda and Daryl being on this as well, and great discussion, and happy to talk further.
Blessings to you, and just so hold on, Linda, because I'm going to have to sign off here, but I'll keep the tape running. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, it's Santita Jackson, and let them know that Reverend Jackson went out to the University of Chicago's encampment and Northwestern's encampment, yes, in his wheelchair, because he wanted the young people, and if he could have gotten on a plane, he would have done that. We are in solidarity right here on the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.
Bye-bye.
AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson Show. Yes, we're continuing with the discussion for however long we do. But I've been talking with Richie Sergienko, Esquire, attorney Sergienko. He has been the attorney for the students in the encampment at UCLA who were shot in the head with rubber bullets. The aim was above the neck. And Attorney Linda Bernard, who's a police commissioner, and one of the police commissioners in Detroit said, wait a minute, that could be lethal. You do know everybody does not have a thick skull. Attorney Daryl Jones, a former prosecutor, you are incredulous as well. Of course, your show is on WOL in DC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And I mean, I've kind of seen you. I've seen your body language. I've seen you looking down, and then you move into the screen, Attorney Bernard. And Attorney Jones, I see you just kind of sit back like, what is? Because I don't think we heard all of this. Attorney Jones, did you? Were you clear that it kind of happened this way at UCLA?
Yeah, no, had not heard all of this, and that's why, the more information that comes out, the more facts that come out, it's just the more egregious it sounds and it becomes. And I think, with Richie, it's just so important that people hear that information of what actually happened. Otherwise, they will believe that the students at the encampment were doing something wrong, that deserve the response of, what, 2,000 police officers, coming for these 400 students. And that's part of the trained belief, I think, of many Americans, is that if the police are coming for you, it's because you did something wrong. You did something to put yourself in that situation. And it's incumbent upon us, particularly attorneys, to say, no, it's not that I've done anything wrong. I was doing something that I had the right to do. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to quell that right. And they brought the force and elevated the force against us, because that's not what we're hearing. And that's not what we've heard from the press whatsoever.
You've not heard this part at all. You didn't know that they aimed these guns and shot at these folks' heads. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine how their parents feel. And then when their parents talk to their friends. I mean, it's a horror. And then when you look at corporate media, legacy media, they're not giving you any of this. They certainly are not telling you that Jerry Seinfeld and his wife took their children on an adventure in Israel, where, it's where you can learn to shoot the terrorists, Palestinians. That's actually like an amusement park. It's like, when you go there and you get dressed up and you shoot people. Richie, am I not telling the truth? I never heard of anything like that in my life.
Yeah,
why would your kid go to school there? I mean, why would you want your kid to go to school there? Why? Why put them in that environment? I'm sorry, Richie.
No, I mean that's a really fair point, and as I was saying, like, why would you want to send your kid there? And also, like, for students, just generally knowing that the authority figures will send riot police with guns to assault you and arrest you and your friends, mm-hmm. It's and also for you all here and everyone that's sticking around, this is like one of my first cases. I'm a recently barred attorney as of last year, but yes, but I
wait a minute, in California, no less.
In California. And I was actually under investigation by the California bar for 2 years, which held up my my admission into the bar. Mm-hmm. And the city attorney in Los Angeles, and I can send this link to you all after, the city attorney in Los Angeles actually tried to get me arrested for a protest she believed I was at regarding AIPAC. And AIPAC just so happens to be the president of AIPAC, Michael Tushin, and his wife just so happen to be donors to the Los Angeles city attorney, Heidi Feldstein Soto. And so last year, in the midst of this happening, while I was waiting for the bar to clear up my moral character, the city attorney was trying to get me investigated and arrested. And so, Santita, as you were saying earlier about, how the forces may be coming after me, for this and for other things, they're certainly doing their best. But I'm happy to be in their way and have them come after me. Yeah.
And you say that, and there's so many attorneys that are afraid to take those types of stands And so, you certainly are to be applauded. In Michigan, Linda, Amir Macklin was the attorney that was in Michigan who was representing a young lady. I apologize, I can't remember her name, who was one of the protesters at the University of Michigan. He went out with his family to Jamaica or someplace on vacation. They were not going to let him back in the country because they knew what he was involved with in that protest at University of Michigan. They wanted to go through his phone and get his contacts and all this other information. So,
this just happened a few weeks ago in Detroit.
In Detroit, exactly. And so, it's situations like that we know that they're trying to intimidate not simply the students that are protesting, but the lawyers that choose to represent the students that are protesting. So it really is a large umbrella of oppression that they're trying to spread out and to really suppress folks from having those rights.
Well, so how are you? Do you have representation, Rishi?
Yes, I'm fortunate to have some amazing civil rights lawyers on my team, and it is what it is. And if Santita and others know, but if you speak out, regardless how you speak out, the terms of how you speak out, you become a target of the state. And some it comes with certain pressure and things that you have to carry with you. But I mean, I believe in what I'm fighting for and what these students are fighting for, and if I'm attacked for it, if we are collectively attacked for it, it is what it is, because I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to allow others to be attacked without having some support. So there are things to come, and we will take it as they are, but we have to continue fighting.
But I think people need to understand just very quickly that you've got a very interesting background. Remember, he's a Compton boy.
Well,
What did you say?
Just for a few years, I played baseball at Compton College.
No, but that's what my father said about.
That's more than most folks.
Well, yeah. I mean, my father said about Jack Kemp, the former representative, the former secretary. He said, he's a very different guy, and I met him.
Very handsome football player,
and a very very nice and decent man, who really reached across the aisle. And he and my father are contemporaries. Had he been living, he would have been in his 80s as well. And he said, he is a white man who I think he really understands. He got something. He said, you have to understand, when you play these team sports, and they were football players at the same time, he said, you really do become brothers in arms. It changes. And you can tell when people have been around each other, because they tend to see the humanity in someone else, because that's your brother. He said, and I got that from, he said, I never ever forgot that about Jack Kemp, because he's someone who I honestly could have supported. I don't care that he was a Republican. I don't have to agree with him on everything. I felt that he was a decent guy who tried to understand people. And when you are in those environments, that's what God gave it to you for, and he gave you just enough. You didn't need to be there your whole life. It was at a critical time in your life, and you got some love and understanding from people, and that shaped you in a particular way. I think that's important. Are
you reading about? You read about me? Well,
that's okay. I'm the producer of my show, and I know that everyone has a journey, and I know that people just don't pop up. Everybody's got a story, a narrative that gets them here. I don't know what your story is, but it's always fascinating. Somehow or another, we all end up here in this time and space, and you have to respect and appreciate that. And in my own life, I have been with people you could not imagine. Like, what do you have in common with Roger Ailes? What do you have in common with Senator Orrin Hatch? What? These are some of the most right-wing people in the world who loved and cared for me and were very encouraging in spaces where I needed to be encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that. I remember just after Senator Hatch passed, I spoke with his daughter, and she said, "My father felt that you were a great artist, and he just loved you and wanted to support you." And and so we recorded out there in the middle of Mormon land in Utah. And I met some of the kindest people in the world in a church that would not admit Black people to the priesthood until very recently in their history. But it is what it is. And so, yeah, I did read about you because I think that anyone who puts themselves in the position in which you have allowed yourself to be placed, there's a story that goes with that. Because you don't just do this because this work is too hard. It's so hard. I mean, and it's necessary, but there was something that was stirred up in you as you struggled. And I felt that was important to bring up and to acknowledge for all of us for people to know that about you. And I honor that in you.
I appreciate that. I actually that means a lot to me that you said all that. So thank you.
No, thank you, because those experiences, Linda, did not make him bitter, Daryl. They made you better. They made you say, you know what? Everything is not what it seems. And you know what? Some people tell a lot of lies about folks. It's just, or maybe I don't quite have this narrative right. And your own struggles have made you more compassionate. They just made you the person that you are. That makes you stand up for people who are on the downside of advantage. And I'm grateful for that because we need that. Now, even though Daryl is a marathoner, at some point you're going to have to pass off that baton, or maybe you can make a few laps around the track with him or down the street. Not around the track because he's a real marathoner. So you can run with him, and then he's going to pick up with you when you say, okay, no mas, I've had enough. But to me, all that's important. And that's why I'm so glad that when I reached out to you today, you were able to make the time, because I want people to know this story. It was a source of frustration for me, Linda, Daryl, Richie. As I was reading, I knew what had happened. And I read enough, and I've been in enough demonstrations. Look, the only demonstration that Dr. King led that ended up violently was upended by a young Black man who had gone to Morehouse, his alma mater, but he was affiliated with the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
I know what this is. Amy Goodman confronted him on Democracy Now! Oh, you all were in the march, and then she brought up, well, there are rumors that you are at least CIA adjacent. He couldn't answer the question. He became unglued. I know what I'm looking at. So when I see these people, and they carry cameras in as they're marching, and you see them trying to goad the marchers, they're trying to goad the demonstrators, and they don't take the bait. And so, I think it's important for us to know who you are. That's always important. And please let these students know that they have supporters out here. Please let them know that. That's all I
look forward to connecting with you, Richie.
Absolutely. We please let's follow up afterwards. I have to head off. I appreciate
much love.
Yes, and in the struggle and solidarity, that's what we're all about, and we got to keep fighting the good fight.
Much love to you. Many blessings. I'm going to connect you so that you can be on his show, and then you got to come back. You got to come back this way.
Yeah. Please let me know. We'll talk soon.
Always. Right. Much love. God bless you. Many blessings.
Right, y'all take care. Bye, Linda.
I love you all, everybody. Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to y'all soon. I'll be out there, I think, in a couple of weeks. I'll let you know.
Oh, please let me know.
Yeah, I'm
Let me
looking at the
know.
18th, so I'll let you know once it's confirmed.
The 18th of June or
Of
May?
May.
Oh, so you'll be like right here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but once it's
Definitely let
confirmed,
me
I'll
know.
let you know. Of course, I'm gonna stop in Gary and then I'm going to head to Chicago.
No, honey, you go. What is it? Where'd you go? What was it? Where in Wisconsin?
So I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
My memory fails me.
Yeah, of course it does. Shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. Shame. He went some little place and he was gonna stop through Chicago. I said, really? Oh,
So,
okay. All right, cool. That's fine. But I'm sending you all much love. Thank you all for a great show. It was I did not expect it. We're still running, but I hope you all enjoyed it too. I wanted everyone to know what had happened at UCLA and what's happening at these encampments because there are paid saboteurs who are breaking up these encampments and it's organized. And these young people are being denied their degrees. They're being threatened. They are under tremendous amount of pressure as they're trying to stop this genocide. And that's what it is. That's what it is. And it
Well, they
needs to
just started the collection effort again this week on
mm-hmm.
student loans. They had been
Mm-hmm.
out for a long, long time.
Oh yeah.
Since COVID, they had been on pause, but now they're back. So
Well, we'll be well,
1.5 million people or something.
I mean, they're going to garnish wages. It's when people are already trying to figure out how to get what it is they say from payday to Monday. This is ridiculous. I mean, and what is painful to me, I'm not here to diminish President Trump and the fact that he has been bankrupt. If you're in business, you take that risk. But the fact is he has been bankrupt. He has known financial hard times and he has had a lot of help getting up out of that hole. Have some compassion.
Well, part of it though is that you take out a loan, you do it yourself, and you in order to make more money. If people haven't made any payments on their loans, Santita, and whatever, the 8 years since COVID, 7 years, then that's on them when you really think about it.
No, what I'm saying is some people are just they are really struggling.
I agree with that. I agree that
I don't talk about this.
There
I don't
should
talk
be
about this
hardship.
often.
Yeah, what you're saying is for hardship cases that
But
the
not
loans
just
should be
not just
forgiven.
hardship. Look, Michelle and Barack Obama did not come out of debt until he became a U.S. senator, and she got a job at the University of Chicago that doubled or tripled her salary. Their financial fortunes changed literally overnight.
Correct.
Up until he won that primary, the money she was making, the majority of it was a little more than a majority of her money was going to child care. Child care.
I don't doubt it.
Because they were paying their student loan debt. So I'm just saying, and they were high wage earners, relatively speaking, but they were making that much money. It on paper,
But people who didn't go to college didn't have that debt.
Yeah, no.
Therefore, and the people who went to college made more money than the people who didn't.
No, not necessarily.
In most cases,
not necessarily. The data shows that a white man with a high school diploma will get a better job and to get a job more quickly than a black man with a degree. I'm just saying people are struggling out here. They're struggling.
They've always been struggling, Santita.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
debt.
I understand that. But you know what? When my parents were in school, they could get a summer job that could defray the costs of their tuition. That is no longer the case. Now, state schools, Howard is like 20.
Oh, Howard's ridiculous. That's $100,000 to go there.
No, it isn't. But it's like
80,
20, 30,000 a year. No.
80.
University of Chicago's 100, Columbia's 100 for undergrads. Right. I mean, the debt is unbelievable, and people are not making a lot of money, Linda. They're not.
I know that, Santita, for a fact.
And what I'm saying is, when they have tried, and in other countries that are really trying to grow and come up, They pay for people to go to school because they don't want a brain drain. They know that if they have an educated populace, guess what? They can really grow their society. Gaddafi understood that. Anywhere you wanted to go, the state paid for it because they would. He said the oil wealth, we're going to use it to
Well, then
build
if
our
you want
country,
to
to
be a
build people.
mechanic or a plumber or whatever, all that should be free. Everything should just be. We should have free education for everybody.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. I
I
mean,
don't have a problem with that.
no, see, I'm saying you shouldn't have to go into debt when you get sick. You shouldn't have to go into debt when you want to get an education, whether it's be it academic, artistic, vocational. That's not the way this is supposed to work.
I agree with that.
I mean, only wealthy people can get sick. Only wealthy people can go to school. That's not right. That's not the way this is supposed to work.
I don't disagree about that because you can tell it in countries like Amsterdam and the Netherlands where everybody has an education. It's unbelievable.
And they just go to school.
Right.
And then they can go any place that they want to in the world.
And they're healthy. There are 3 million bicycles in the city of Amsterdam alone. They ride bikes.
And guess what? If you get sick there, you get taken care of. So I'm just saying, this is, everything has been privatized in the United States and we're not winning. It would be one thing if we were winning. We're not winning.
Well, the question they asked the other night on our station, Fox, was no one has looked at why education costs so much in America versus other places.
And my point is,
where's all this money? How did it get so expensive overnight?
We're not winning. We're not winning. If we were winning, I would not have a problem. But we're not winning. We're not winning. So because we're not winning, if we're not winning, this is not working. Okay. So that's all I'm saying. We're not winning. That means it's not working. So you got to come up with something else.
Bye, honey bunny. You and I both
love you. I love you, everybody. Love
Kiss
you,
mom and dad and your brother for me.
And everybody who tuned in, I hope you'll tune in tomorrow. Yeah, same time, same
all right.
channel. Love you all. I'm so glad. And please, everybody, like and share the show. Like and share the show. My crazy girl, Linda, she's brilliant. She knows the law. And love you all. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Thank you, Ricci Sergienko. Thank you, Attorney Daryl Jones. Thank you, Attorney Linda Bernard. My ride or die, my sister. I love you. I love you all, Morning Stars. And I hope that this will be the start of a wonderful relationship for those of you who just tuned in. May God bless you. And we got a lot to talk about tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about loans. I don't know. We'll see. Let me know. Go to the
number one woman on the airways. Good for you.
Oh, hey, everybody. Let me know what you want to talk about.
Clearly the prettiest. No,
please.
Those bats that are on the view and all that.
You're the one. Nobody can see you under that hat. Okay.
I will change up. Okay. I'll look like a person. Okay.
Oh, please.
Bye-bye.
She's gorgeous anyway. Love you all.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.